is it not more valuable to have us as humans just rattle off commands and then something goes and does it in the background? Even if we have to pay 90 cents for it to go and do that, and we save 30 seconds or a minute of our time. How much is our time
Yeah.
worth? In fact, I think Claude, somebody needs to do some benchmarks on this, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Claude is so verbose in its output on purpose to make you burn more tokens. Like, they're making more money because they are more
But
verbose, and
but is
so
that but it's not in their interest though, is it?
we're back, and
Yeah.
we are going to talk all about, well, we're going to debug the tokenomics
The
narrative.
money.
Show me the money, follow the money. I don't
Yeah.
know which trope to say fast
Yeah.
enough. There
Money,
are
money,
so many.
money. Must be funny in a
Oh,
rich
there's so
man's
much. Yeah, we
world.
can start singing songs about money.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find fascinating is, and I really wanted to talk to you about this because this is all about debugging, and I've got red flags just blowing up in my head every time I hear folks talking about how the era of subsidized tokens is over. And I'm like, I don't know about that. First of all, I don't know if we have subsidized tokens fully. Second of
Mm.
all, I don't know if that era is over because to me, it looks like we are still in the heat of
Mm.
an epic battle that may rage for, I don't know, at least another 6 months, another
Okay,
year.
what do you refer to as the epic battle?
I'm talking about Anthropic versus the world, but mainly OpenAI.
Yeah.
And you see there's others that are coming into the fold too. You've got Grok, you've got
Mm.
Geminis. And so the idea that now one of these folks is going to be able to start charging a premium for their tokens
Mm.
and jack up the price more than they already are jacked
Mm.
up. I don't think that's going to fly because at least one of these four that are creating foundational models may just say, you know what, we're going to not worry about losing a ton on all of these tokens for the next couple
Mm.
months to gain market share. And that kind of competition will only drive the cost of tokens down, in my
Mm.
opinion.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective. And that competition will help drive token prices down, right? Because token prices they were getting cheaper for like up until 2026. We saw like
We
they
love you.
were every quarter things were like getting cheaper and cheaper. And that was mainly due to that we found these optimizations to make it cheaper. And that slowed down. And especially with more thinking models, and thinking models eat more tokens, right? So that has increased cost overall that we are spending on tokens.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth remembering that at the end of the day, we are coming back to the physical limitations and the physical cost of actually doing AI, right? There is actually electricity happening somewhere, right? And I do think that's an interesting problem. And right as I talked about this, like the little thing in my head popped in that I still believe that we are going to see local models, like on end user devices, become more powerful so that you can do
Yeah.
more, that everything doesn't have to. I think we might be able to see a hybrid approach. So you have, like the the advisor tool that you can now see in like Claude, for example. So using the Anthropic models, there is this where you can have a more capable model being the advisor. And imagine you have the advisor hosted, but you can have
Yeah.
a worker that is less capable, but you split your. Anyway, that's like Erica's future ideas of like how will we maybe have a split brain situation with some inference happening locally and more advanced inference happening. Now I'm like on a weird tangent, but cost is interesting here because I
will say something on what you were
yeah,
just talking about with
yeah,
these local models, because I was reading some article this week that I can't remember the name of. It might have been around more agent
mm,
harnesses. As you know, I've been on that kick
yeah,
lately. But the funny thing that they said at the beginning was the fact that we still refer to the main compute engines of our AI models as
mm,
graphical processing units. We
mhm,
haven't even begun to optimize for AI workloads because we're
yeah,
still using GPUs.
mm,
Playing a
yeah,
very key role in that phrase right there. And so the whole idea was, well, we're going to be able to optimize much more. And I don't know if you saw the NVIDIA
mm,
keynote, and they were doing a bunch of cool stuff with like Dell and ASICs to try and create really, really beefy machines
mm,
in very, very small form factors so that you can have on-machine type or
yeah.
laptop type.
Oh, well, it doesn't have to be a portable machine. I'm happy with like a going back to tower desktop situation. I mean, I do have to admit that me and my husband did buy a very expensive NVIDIA GPU
Really?
for home. Yeah.
Was it worth
Yes.
it?
This is yet to be seen because we bought it and still haven't put it to work. And I got to do that because that is a very expensive toy. So,
You are the microcosm of the macrocosm of this whole tokenomics discussion, because it is literally like what is happening out there in the world, whether you're a single player having fun in your house type of, I want to run local models on my own machine at home, or you're a gigantic company and you
yeah.
decide to reserve a lot of GPUs, or you're just grabbing tokens. I feel like the hardest question to answer right now
Yeah.
is, was it worth it, or is it worth
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
most folks, I think they're gonna say yes, but it is not like it's so easy to say, yeah, look, we can point to these
Mm,
revenue metrics going up and
yeah.
our XYZ having, like, we have more EBITDA or more cash flow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the Microsoft announcement now as well, like because you talk about hardware. And if I understand correctly, because I don't have all of the details, this is like Erica also skimmed the news, but they are partnering, and this is my memory of names is so bad. The company, the hardware stuff they're partnering with, because the takeaway I got from it, regardless of the names of companies and technologies, is that by them partnering with a hardware company will allow them to actually optimize the hardware on which their models are being trained and hopefully also the hardware on
Oh
which they're
yeah, for sure.
serving inference. And what is interesting about the Microsoft announcement, right? Sorry, coughing here. What's interesting about the Microsoft announcement because is the fact that Microsoft owns things all the way down to infrastructure, hardware, to providing people with the software they're using on the
Yeah,
desktops, like
Copilot.
Microsoft 365 or whatever it's called. Is it called
Yeah.
365 or 360? I don't know. Look, I hate those things. Is this like a circle or is it the number of days in a year? Okay. Anyway, the office suite situation. The point being that I spoke to my mother, right? What AI does she use?
Uh,
She uses for work, she uses the, she says the AI that is in Word and PowerPoint.
and she's tech savvy. Break down your mom real
Mm.
fast so we
My
can
mother is
know.
a teacher that is very tech enthusiastic.
Okay.
So she likes to know how to use things. So I asked her, do you use AI? And she's like, yes, I do. So, but she does this in her teaching to like help with creating like summaries of if she had taught like a course for 6 months, being able to create these summaries from all of her existing materials to the students, really great. And apparently she told me about how things are like integrated. I haven't tried this between our PowerPoint and Word, and anyway, she knows things I don't.
About
uh,
Microsoft.
yes. And how she puts it to work. But also think this, why do I find this interesting? Like I use Claude and ChatGPT, and my mum, she uses Gemini if she wants to find something out, like just find the answers,
Huh?
because she knows Google. And for
Yeah.
work, she uses Microsoft because she knows Microsoft. And so
Mhm.
why is this Microsoft announcement interesting to me is because there are these huge user bases that know Microsoft. And if Microsoft can not be completely dependent on OpenAI to deliver like good AI into their suite of tools, their platforms, their compute, that's good for them, I guess, like
Yeah.
from Microsoft. And they are well placed in an interesting way, like from all the way from end users in. Like I know my mum's a teacher, being like an enterprise down to the hardware that
Well, there's
they
a
own.
few different announcements that Microsoft made, right? One is they're optimizing their hardware for their models, but then another is that they're going to start making their own models, supposedly.
Yeah.
So let's see how good those models are, which plays back into my first argument
Yeah.
of that is probably going to continue to put a lot of pricing pressure
Yeah.
on the tokens,
Yeah.
especially if their model is semi good.
Yeah. And it's like if it's good enough for doing the things that people need to do, because I think there's obviously a difference between what I probably do with coding with Claude versus what my mum's doing.
That is a great point.
And like we hopefully don't need the same type of model capabilities unless my mum wants to start coding. That's a different conversation. But you know, for her use case, it is a bit different. And I do think about how do you know which model to pick for the job? It's something I've been thinking about for a long time.
Well, I think the fact that you have to pick is already a design flaw. And that's why there's a lot of friction with whenever I am coding
Mm,
with Claude or Codex or whatever it may
mm,
be, if I have to specifically use the brain power to say like, "Oh, use a lesser model for this,"
yeah.
then that is getting me out of trying to solve the problem, and now
Mm,
I'm in optimization mode. It should just be able to optimize it on its own.
yeah.
However, I don't think it does that or even cares about that at all. In fact, I think Claude, somebody needs to do some benchmarks on this, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Claude is so verbose in its output on purpose to make you burn more tokens. Like they're making more money because they are more
But
verbose, and
but is
so
that but
what
it's not in their interest though, is it? They want you to feel powerful. Okay, if we think about Claude Code, my perspective is they want me to feel successful, right?
Yeah.
So if they want me to feel successful, and contrary to what's happened with Copilot situation and token pricing, which we'll get into as well, right? Claude Code has sort of token pricing, but not really, right? It's
Yeah, it depends on how you're using it. If you're
yeah,
using it through the plan, it's
mm,
heavily that's what people say is, "Oh, if you're using
yeah.
it on the plan, you're getting way more than if you were using it through the API."
And then like enterprises now are not allowed to have like the fancy, nice retail plans, right? So
Yeah.
it's like something like that as well
And you
happening.
can't use a lot of these cool tools, like, that was where the whole OpenClaw drama
Yeah.
came, was you can't use OpenClaw with your plan, you have to use it through the API, and
Hmm.
then the pricing blew up and ballooned.
Yeah.
And so but just going back, I wanna tie a
Yeah.
knot, a nice little bow
Yes.
on what you were saying with the local models, because I've been
Yeah.
hearing people
Ah,
pound the drum on local models for ages and ages, and it's like, "Yeah, run local models." I am not convinced we're going to get to that point. Even if we do get incredibly nice form
mm,
factor, powerful, beefy machines that we can
mm,
take and they're like our laptops are these days, like the new MacBooks that came out, you can now run like a
Yeah.
trillion. I'm not saying you can, but if you could
Yeah.
run a whatever 70B or 120B
Mm.
model on it, and it doesn't blink. You can do that
Mm.
and multitask with a few other things at the same time.
Yeah.
I still don't feel like that many people are going to go through the ho extra work to get that work up and running on their machine. Even though I know Ollama is incredibly easy to get
Yeah, yeah,
working. It's like
I wouldn't envision it to be a situation where if to make it mainstream, I wouldn't envision it that you have to do a lot of self-setup. It would have to like be packaged into a solution. Like where if you imagine like Claude Code, it would ship with a cheaper, like locally running model that delegates out to the cloud what it needs to know. That's my
interesting.
thought, like that you have some sort of local agent powered by a smaller model that can at least do some of the coordination and like like we just said, like I don't want to have to choose which model to use for what if you could have a little model that can do some little things at least locally, like making decisions about which cloud hosted models to use.
Yeah, your classifier. You see this with routers too. That's
Yeah.
a huge thing. I just don't see that being the main thing on people's minds right now. There's
Yeah,
a
I
lot
know.
of hoot and hollering about
Yeah.
token prices and all of
Yeah.
this. And really, if you put some provisions into place, you probably can do the same thing you're doing for a lot less, but that hasn't necessarily been the focus. Where the focus
Yeah.
has needed our attention up until now, when all of a sudden, like, token maxing and tokenomics
Mhm.
became a thing, and now we're starting to talk about it, and so tokenomics is on people's minds.
Yeah.
But there's so many other pieces to, like, the tokenomics play, which is the
There's
fact
like,
that
why do people care, by the way? Like, why do people suddenly care about money? I think is
yeah,
another fun question. I know where you were
well
going to go, but I think that is a fun question to think about.
yeah, all of a sudden it's so popular. One thing that comes to my mind is that it's because Anthropic is about to go public, and they've also seen the fastest growth out of any other company in history. And so everyone else that is using Anthropic, they're thinking
Yeah.
to themselves, "Oh my God, this might be the most valuable company
Mm.
ever." All of a
Yeah.
sudden, and from like 0 to 1 trillion, market
Yeah.
cap in a couple years, that's unreal.
Like,
Now
yeah, it is unreal. It's mental. Like, I remember I had a friend who joined Anthropic like a few years ago, and I was like, oh, that's a weird, obscure little company you're joining.
yeah, they came out in 2021. That was the formation of the company. So
Yeah.
to get from 2021 to 2026, 5 years, and now I think the last time that I heard, it was something like $60 billion worth in,
Mm.
revenue in, like, a quarter or something. I don't know, it's just outrageous. I don't know what the
Yeah.
exact revenue numbers are. I just know that they're printing cash, and that
Yeah.
might be one of the reasons why everyone is starting to say, wait a minute, we should probably think about tokens because I have a lot of friends that work at Meta,
Mm.
and all of my friends at Meta said that they use so much money
Mm.
of Anthropic tokens, and I find that incredible because Meta was in the game. They had these
They
open source
were.
models,
Yeah.
and then they kinda gave up, but they still have a lot of GPUs, and, so that's confusing to
Meta
me.
is interesting. Oh, dude, that's like an entire interesting deep dive of like the shape of a company and what are they actually up to right now is,
Yeah.
you know.
They didn't come out with another llama model, that's for sure, and, like, llama code, that was back in the day, that was around, I feel like, but now, not so much, and what is happening there, that's wild, is you gotta imagine the executives at Meta are thinking to themselves, oh, wow, this
Mm.
company Anthropic might have a bigger market cap than us if things continue to grow like they've been growing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're excited about that.
I
However, they
think
are contributing a lot to it.
they are a big customer. Yeah. I think another reason why people are now like thinking about cost so much is that they are moving their agents or the agentic solution out of like prototype, demo, and they're moving them into production. And they're going to be part of key business workflows. Or like when I say people have done this obviously for years already, but when I say I think this is like a more mass movement of like enterprises. I've seen several announcements in the last like 6 months from companies that are like, oh, we're doing this with AI, we have this product. And just thinking about that is that now they are becoming part of workflows there. But not like startup, cool tech, niche tech situations, but like
Scale.
financial markets,
Yeah.
right? Things that, and that to me, and it's not just like, oh, it analyzes emails, right? Or analyzes the news and gives our traders and portfolio managers some info about the markets. Like we are seeing agentic processes in more critical, but also these agentic processes can run and run and run and run and run. It's not like back and forth human supervision interaction.
Well,
And
it's more sophisticated, it's more mature, and it is more always on. And then the adoption levels are steadily increasing. So, like you said, your mom is using AI.
yeah,
Like my mom's probably using it. I haven't asked her, but I
yeah,
would imagine she is. And these are things that now it is much more mainstream. And so you tackle the amount of people using it, and then how
mm,
often they're using it, and then it can be even the automations that we're building on
yeah,
top of it, so I don't have to be around for it to be used.
yeah,
Now that can quickly explode inside of a 10,000 or 100,000 person
yeah.
enterprise.
Oh, and this really relates back to what we were talking about. Was it last week when we talked, or was it 2 weeks ago when we talked about like the impact on the systems and the infrastructure when we have agents interacting with it,
Yeah.
right? So these agents that are, running on their own, but that also means if you have loads of agents that run on their own, token usage is now not limited to how many people are sitting chatting with an AI. So like token spend is no longer dependent on human interaction at a
Boom.
larger scale than we saw at the first 2 years of like the boom of AI. So I
Yeah,
think
when you had
that's,
to go and you had to sit and talk and back and forth, ask questions, get
yeah,
an answer, that type of thing. But you know what I think the real, probably biggest reason is that different companies are trying to ask that question of, is this working? Is this really giving us as much value as we are spending
yeah,
on it? And up until now, if you were an executive or if you had a business
mm,
that you wanted to quote unquote stay competitive
yeah,
with, you didn't really have a choice but to at least try and plug AI in because of
yeah,
all the hype around it.
yeah,
And now what I get the feeling folks are starting to suss out is like, okay, so what are the ways that we can prove to ourselves that
yeah,
spending this money is worth it? And so now I imagine we're going to hear much more like the efficiency
yeah.
of tokens. So it's not like whoever's token maxing, it's like token efficiency is
Yeah.
going to be
What's the
something. But
impact? What's the value? Right. And it's so fascinating because all of this feels like it's converging in an interesting place because I'm a maintainer of Envoy AI Gateway. So for context why I'm in that bubble, but I am sure anyone else who is in an AI gateway, agent gateway community will have seen this conversation come up. But over like the last 2, 3 weeks, the conversation on putting in easier, not token limiting, but dollar limiting into the gateway has come up. So that is also really hard, by the way. Why is this a hard problem? Because different providers have different pricing mechanisms for different
Changing all the
models,
time.
and it's
Yeah.
changing so fast. So one of the engineering challenges on like the cost governance side is actually how do we create a framework that is flexible enough that we don't have to make a release of the gateway because a new model with a new pricing structure has come out, right? How can you make that easier to configure and allow, adopters of the gateway to be able to do? So that's something we've been talking about quite a bit actually on how we can do that better. Right now, it's a bit crude. So how can we do that easier? And I think what's interesting, and hopefully we don't know exactly what's going to come out of this. What is the name of tokenomics, right? This tokenomics part from the Linux Foundation. Something that would help, people like who are implementing these things is more standardized ways that models advertise their cost and how we can calculate it. Because if we can get them more standardized, the people are building the software to help the people figure out if they have good, ROI on their stuff they're building, that could drastically simplify it.
Yeah. And I will say I'm going to be in San Diego next week for the FinOps Foundation conference that they have. And they're announcing the whole tokenomics foundation that they're setting up. And I'm excited to hear and learn more about how those folks are thinking, because from what I
Yeah.
understand, a lot of the people that are in the FinOps Foundation, the persona that hangs out in there is very much like a technical but finance person. So it's like the
Yeah.
finance department, but sometimes these gigantic companies, they have a whole technical team that is part of the
Yeah.
finance department. They live under the CFO. They report to the
Yeah.
CFO type.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I got introduced to more of the concept of FinOps through this AI journey over the last 2 years than I had previously ever been, exposed to that in my career. And it feels like 2 years ago, it was like people were talking about it, but because people weren't actually pushing stuff we're talking enterprise level, they weren't actually pushing stuff out to production, to end users. They were experimenting, they were putting stuff in production. I'm going to say that with like quotation marks because it was in a production environment, but it was internal facing. So it wasn't customer facing, say. And they had more control over what they were doing, sort of exploratory, doing that. And FinOps was sort of interested at that point, but it kind of came out of R&D budgets and thinking about it more as like we are exploring this technology and how it can benefit us. And now it's sitting somewhere else in the balance sheet, right? Now is the cost of goods served, right? Or whatever the acronym actually is, the COGS, right? So you have to truly understand what are you delivering and what did it cost to deliver it.
Yeah.
And now people are even more interested than like the interest has like wasn't like a linear like increase in interest. I feel like it's been exponential.
Yeah, there's so many memes that I've seen that I love when it comes to us using tokens and just burning tokens at will. And imagine you've seen the one where there's this gigantic sword, something out of
Wait.
Lord of the Rings that's like
Yeah.
Aragorn's sword, and he's using it to cut a cake. And on the top, it says something like, me using Opus 4.8 to,
Yeah.
change the name on
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
or
Okay. Yeah, I know. Like, yeah. Okay. Like, I have to admit that just this morning, I asked Opus 4.8 to raise a PR for me. Right? I could have just gone to GitHub and clicked the button myself.
Yeah, but
Could
again,
have.
this is where so the big question I think that is still in everyone's mind, and this is why the tokenomics piece is so fascinating is that, is it not more valuable to have us as humans just rattle off commands and then something goes and does it in the background? Even if we have to pay 90 cents for it to go and do that, and we save 30 seconds or a minute of our time. How much is our time
Yeah.
worth? For a CFO who's looking at a balance sheet, they can say, well, I pay Demetrius X amount,
Yeah.
and so his time is worth this much per second or per minute or
Yeah.
per hour, however much. So if we can save him 5 hours per week, then technically we should give him a budget of
Yeah.
this much.
Ah, that's a cool perspective. Sorry, I just really like that way of thinking about it. Like, just, I mean, people get paid different amount of money, but like, I like the idea of seeing like actually human time to time saved, right? I
Yeah.
like that.
Because then what I heard the founder of SourceGraph say back probably like a
Ah.
year ago, two
Oh,
years
dude, I
ago.
haven't heard of Source Graph for a bit. Okay, yeah.
Mm.
Anyway,
Yeah,
continue.
they went off and they started AMP, and then I don't think AMP really went anywhere. And I'll tell you what, like the coding agent space is brutal right now because basically Claude Code ate everyone's lunch, and then
Yeah,
Codex is kind of a close second. And then what do you have? You have
yeah.
Cursor that is
And then like
also
Rue
there.
Code pivoted.
There's so many that were there doing well. Augment Code is one, Klein's one. You've
Oh
got
yeah.
Kilo Code, Warp, Human Layer. All these folks are doing incredible things. Open Code for the open source
Mm.
folks. And it is just brutal out there because at the end of the day, it's really hard, in my eyes, to not use Claude Code or Codex because that's really easy. But
Apart from
anyway,
my mum isn't using it, is she?
no, yeah. But I think, yeah, if you really want to get super like efficient, you probably go out and try and use these different ones because
Yeah.
they have different flavors and very
Yeah.
nice features that are specific for what you want. But anyway, the cost of human time is what Ben Yang told me back in the day. He said, we don't even look at our pricing model as far as like, oh, this is expensive versus not,
Mm.
because we compare how much we're charging you to
Yeah.
if you were to have a human do that same thing.
Yeah. And I just thought about us talk about humans. I love the human experience in the way that also thinking like what makes a human happy, right? What problems would you like to spend your time thinking about? Honestly, I do not like writing the description of a PR. I do not like doing that. I don't find joy in that. If I spend time creating something, summarizing that in a way that someone else, honestly, I'm like, no,
Yeah,
can you please do
no.
it for me? Like, I'm sure there are people who enjoy it. But when I thought about that now, it's like, how do we also, because happy people, there's a study about how companies that have happy employees have higher share prices.
Oh,
And yeah, I looked into this a few years ago when I was really into like, what is happiness? How do we define happiness? How do you find happiness? That's another
nice.
weird story of Erica's life. But then what I found through all of that before the era of AI, reading loads of articles and trying to get my head around it, was some interesting findings. Obviously, happiness is a very vague thing, but happiness, there was this like, does companies that do well make their employees happy, or do happy employees make a company do well? That's obviously a good question to ask, but they are seeing a difference in the success of companies based on the happiness of the employees. So could AI help make people happier by allowing people to do things that give them more happiness instead of doing the things that, remove happiness?
Potentially. I'll tell you what, I try to throw everything at AI first that I'm like instantly I feel lazy to do, and I'll go like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just see if it will be able to do it on its
Yeah.
own. I
And
we'll
what if the
see.
tinkering gives you joy and joy gives you happiness and therefore like you
And happiness just magically makes the share price of the
increase
company go
revenue.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
increases revenue and profits. Not
Happiness
just, yeah,
increases revenue. We've already established that fact. So just share price
nothing to
goes
do
up.
with your product or nothing to do with actual output of your employees. If they're just happy,
If they're
they just
happy, you're
magically
good.
follow. Uh, I know, I don't think it's that simple, but what I do
But
think
it
it's
might be.
fascinating.
Yeah,
It
it's
may
not
help.
not.
It's
Yeah.
not going to make it worse, I don't think. Uh,
No.
I do think what you said that though, like throwing things at AI and seeing what happens, something that I thought was interesting to think about in the world of tokenomics is if we are, if we think of this new generation of engineers, software creators, builders, whatever we want to call them, and I kind of feel like everyone, regardless of where you are in your career, has sort of needed to transition into, but we have a generation that didn't live in the software creation world before AI, right? And if they are now, like they're coming into it, they are getting their hands on AI, but also the first thing they're being hit with is like, actually, be careful, like how much you spend, how many tokens you spend. Are we removing the exploration, the creativity, the learning? Because by doing and exploring, like throwing your boring tasks at AI and observing what happens actually teaches you things about AI, about software. And if we remove that ability for young engineers to explore, are we reducing their ability to learn?
Hmm. Well, also, I make the joke kind of tongue in cheek about how I can burn a whole lot of tokens and create absolutely nothing of value. And I
Mm,
have this special skill of being able to do that. And so there are probably some incredible engineers that are able to burn a whole lot of tokens and also create nothing of value
yeah,
or create a whole lot of value.
yeah,
And the thing is that right now we're all in a way researching how to go about steering
yeah,
and maneuvering these coding agents specifically in a
yeah,
way that we can get the most out of them. And if
yeah,
you're putting this cap on what we can and can't do, that's a little bit of a bummer, like you said, because we are now not able to fully explore
yeah,
and fully learn. But I just think like there's some experiments that I've heard folks talk about, like really good engineers that I feel like are very valuable. They burn
yeah,
a ton of tokens, but you're getting a much better result because of it. And I'll give you a
yeah.
very concrete example of
Okay, go for
one
it.
where you have, and now I even think Claude
Mm,
recently has these like dynamic workflows.
mm.
So they say that you're building your own harness on the fly type of thing,
Okay.
but and there's different workflows that are or templates or patterns that you
Yeah,
can create. But basically, this engineer a few months ago came on to the MLOps
yeah,
community meetup, and he said that the way that he will create code
yeah,
and make sure that it is the best the model can produce is
yeah,
he writes the tests. He has the tests be quite like well put together, whether
yeah.
it's him together with the AI or the
But
AI or
well-defined outcomes, like what he's
yeah.
expecting. What does done and good look like?
And then here's the kicker, and this is where he burns a whole lot of
Okay.
tokens. He said, I will create 5 to 10 parallel agents and
Okay.
give them the same task. And then
Mm,
at the end, whichever one passed the tests with the highest percentage of passing,
mm.
that's the one that I merge.
Yeah. I have heard about this approach, right? And I think that's another one, like what is the it falls into this sort of experiment and like exploring, right? But it falls into
Uh-huh.
like, can we, you know, what is a waste? Is 5 a waste? Is 3 okay? Like, where is the limit, right? And I just remembered that a friend told me a story about where they were actually having 2 consulting companies working on the same problem in a company, but they
Mhm.
were unaware of each other. And they were given this is software delivery consulting, this is years ago, and they didn't know about the other company. And they were both working to solve the same problem, and the client would then simply choose which one they liked best. And that is the same idea as the guy you
Yeah.
talked about, but doing it with humans, vibe coding with humans, or if you will, right? But the idea was like they were spending money on 2 companies solving the same problem, building a solution to solve the same problem.
Yeah, the companies do this all the time, though. If you have a really good salesperson, one way to make them even better is to hire another salesperson that they compete with.
Ah,
So you put that competition in and you have them now it's like they are trying to one up each other. And in a way it's like that. And you're
but should we
trying
tell
to
the
see
coding agents if we run several in parallel to solve the same problem that they're in a competition? Do you think they'll perform better
tell
if we
them,
tell them, like,
yeah,
this is a
we're
competition?
that see, these are the things where you can try them and then
Yeah.
you end up burning a bunch of tokens, but you now know like, oh, this actually works better. And so you can write a blog about it and
Yeah.
potentially go viral on Twitter or
I do
X.
think it's funny, how do you put them? But on the whole, like, coding and tokenomics situation, right? I feel that if I am paying for Claude Code and um I don't want to pay per token for using Claude Code. The reason being is that Anthropic is controlling so much of the system prompt and other stuff that goes into it. I'm not even in control of all of like the loops and the like
Yeah,
prompts.
there's that harness again that we were talking
Yeah.
about before.
So I feel like it doesn't make sense that I pay for all of the tokens because all of the tokens are not my responsibility, right? I am buying a product that is using inference to deliver me a coding agent.
A
I am happy,
result.
yeah, which the coding agent should then deliver a result. But I am the, and I think this is why, in some way, I understand that my usage of said agent needs to like be metered in some way, and that I have to, if I never use it, maybe I don't have to pay, but if I use it, I need to pay. However, there needs to be like, and I think at least in the subscription model, Anthropic is doing all right with this. There's like usage, but it's not like, you use so many tokens. So I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't want to be charged for stuff that isn't my responsibility.
Have you seen what some companies are doing around this? And I know Sierra is one that is outcome-based pricing. So instead of usage or seat-based pricing, they say, You only pay us if we do what we said we were going to be able to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
or
And
what
you
you asked
accept it?
us to do."
Do you have to like,
Yeah,
do you get to say yes or no,
I
quality
don't think you
wise?
can get to the yes or no in a way that doesn't break at scale, because that just seems like, imagine you have a customer service center and there's thousands of tickets that are coming through per minute.
Yeah.
You can't say like, "Oh, yeah, you did this one, I accept this." It would just create this
Mm.
backlog that is
Yeah.
impossible to
How
get
do you
through.
handle, yeah, like how do you handle returns? Like I had a skirt delivered the other day and it had a stain on it. How do I handle that? I take a photo of the stain and I send a message to the company, be like, yeah, there's an issue here. Skirt's great, just got a stain on it. How can you, yeah, I'm not going to pay for a skirt that's got a stain on it.
Yeah. But, well, I think what Sierra does and Decagon and a few of these other, like, agent-based customer service companies is they would get that complaint, and they would then try and create a refund or give you some kind of store credit, send it to you. If you want to send back the skirt, you can set it all up, and then they
Yeah.
can handle that
Get me a
from
skirt
the
that doesn't have a
software
stain
side.
on it.
Yeah, you probably don't want it anymore. So you want to send it back, and they give you the refund or they give you the store credit. But they wouldn't get paid unless that operation of closing your ticket
Yeah.
gets done.
Okay.
Does that
Okay,
make
so
sense? So
that's
then,
cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in the world of customer. That's a great way to measure value in customer service. Love it, actually. That's amazing. If you close the ticket, that's job done. There's a good definition of done. Ah,
yeah,
that's the magic to it. They can truly charge for outcome because they have a good definition of done.
yeah. And then if they don't, and they escalate it to a human, I think they just like charge you a percentage or they charge you
Yeah.
partially. But also, then what happens is, however they want to go and complete that, whatever models they want to use, whatever retrieval they want to be using, however many tokens they want to burn to get your ticket closed is on them. And you, as the company that's paying them, you're just paying for a ticket closed. And then you
Yeah.
have a really easy way of saying, all right, cool. Well, normally we pay XYZ call center
Yeah.
this much per month, and
Yeah.
they close this many tickets. And now we're looking at Sierra Decagon, insert your favorite
Yeah.
company that does this, and they are charging us this much per ticket
Yeah.
closed.
I wonder how, like, when we have outsourced human support centers, do they charge per close ticket? I was curious because I feel like maybe if we can learn from how these like outsourcing companies are charging for value delivered when they have humans doing the work rather than AI, maybe we can learn.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm not so familiar on their. I imagine you get a little bit of everything on their pricing models. I know that in sales, you can find different companies that will try to book you meetings, and you don't pay them unless they book you a meeting. So you would pay per meeting booked, and it's all commission on that.
Yeah.
And so potentially that's again another outcome-based pricing model.
Yeah. I like that. Like that. I think it's like same that went through in the sort of cloud native computing thing. Like, I don't think you should pass on your cloud computing bill to your customers unless you are a cloud computing company. You need to charge them. So,
Yeah.
right. That is what you do if you're AWS or Google Cloud. Like, of course, you have to charge the cloud compute cost. But like, if you are building on top of it, I don't want you to just charge me your cloud compute
Yeah,
bill.
you don't have a pricing model that is like, "Oh, well, we're using more S3 buckets
Yeah.
this month, so we're gonna pass
Yeah.
that on to the user." That is an interesting one to think about.
But there was a big challenge in cloud computing. Like, how do you create a product that is profitable and has a cost correlation with the compute spend? So, like, as people spend more, like as you spend more compute to deliver value, are you charging linearly against that so you don't completely destroy your profit margin? And I
Yeah.
feel like that is a similar problem in the AI
Mhm.
inference space. Like, how do you correlate so that you don't have this situation where you have more users and more stuff delivered, and it's like completely like the graph, like your revenue goes up, but your like spend is completely skyrocketing up
Very
beyond.
unprofitable. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, you thought you were profitable at the beginning, and then it's like, no.
Boom. Yeah.
So
Oops.
so anyway, that's what we've seen similar challenges before, but I think this one is just like magnitudes larger than we've seen.